Daniel! Jenna!
We are talking The Wicked Ones, directed and co-written by Tory Jones. Now this is actually a sequel to the 2017 slasher movie The Wicked One, which I reviewed on the channel a few years ago. So The Wicked Ones, this actually takes place 10 years after the original movie, and we have the survivors of that movie now obviously 10 years older, and they have now teenage kind of children, and they once again come into contact with the masked slasher known as the Wicked One, except this time he has two acolytes with him, these two brother and sister serial killers who have decided to kind of tag along and create mayhem. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss what we think works with The Wicked Ones. Before we do that, it's worth remembering what I kind of said about the original movie to a certain degree, because I think some of that translates to this one, because it has a lot of the same positives and negatives. I found The Wicked One to be well made, but somewhat of a generic slasher movie, with a little bit of a pacing issue at times, but an interesting looking killer. It's kind of true of this one as well. A lot of the same things that I felt positive and negative about the first one translates this one, so it definitely feels like it's an in-universe sequel. There's a lot of the kind of the same kind of stuff that's kind of going on. But what can we say that worked? I think having these two kind of acolyte killers who are very different to the Wicked One in regards to the way they kind of operate. They're kind of like manic pixies, always kind of dancing around, jabbering, making kind of weird sounds and things like that, whilst the Wicked One is kind of more of a stoic kind of typical kind of Jason Voorhees kind of style killer. It does give it a little bit of variety here, because we have these two very kind of different sort of styles of, you know, the crazed kind of serial killer trope that we've seen in kind of MANIA movies. So there is that. I quite like the fact that this is this kind of continuation from the original movie, and we are still dealing with, or the characters are still dealing with trauma from the original movie, especially the mother, who really doesn't seem to be able to kind of get over it, and the kind of the kids who are now teenagers don't really remember all that much, and kind of you know, they're aware that it's happened but don't remember it all that much. And what I quite liked with those, for example, they actually seem like quite a good mix between like the rebellious teens kind of wanting to do their own thing, but they know that they've had this big sort of traumatic event, so they are actually quite sympathetic to, I think, the needs of the parents. As for example, they go to this kind of gig as a family, and the mum just can't handle it. And I quite like the fact that we don't have the typical petulant, teenage kind of characters here who are goes, oh, I want it my way. They're actually quite like, I understand, you go, you know, it's absolutely fine. That I kind of quite like. So we do get quite a good depiction of quite a well-adjusted, for considering the kind of the circumstances, family unit here. There's also another instance, for example, where the sister is in danger and the brother simply won't leave her and things like that. So I actually did quite enjoy the kind of the depiction of this kind of family unit here, which I thought was kind of quite good. And with that, I don't think the acting is all that bad at all. I think the acting from our main characters, you know, it's a bit kind of hammy, admittedly, but I think it's, you know, it gets the job done. I think they portray what they're trying to portray in regards to these kind of characters. And I think everyone there does a reasonable job for this kind of this style of movie. Now, when you're watching a masked slasher movie, we're not expecting DiCaprio level acting here, but so I think it's fine for the kind of the movie that this kind of trying to put out here. As with the first movie, I do think this is filmed in quite a kind of confident manner, which gives it a reasonable kind of production feel to it. And things here like, I think, for example, the use of some of the props, like the police car and the kind of the police kind of headquarters, things like this. A few kind of peripheral characters, gives it a slightly better than average kind of lower budget kind of B-movie kind of feel to it. It does make it feel like it's kind of got at least some mild kind of production value in regards to that. And yeah, the serial killer kind of still looks pretty cool, very much in the vein of kind of a Jason Voorhees kind of style killer. There's a little bit of a hint of supernatural in this one, but it doesn't go overboard with it. Arguably, you could say it didn't need to be in there because it doesn't really play into the kind of the movie all that much, but there it is. What doesn't work in this movie, again, it's a lot of the same, I think, with the first film. The movie's pacing is a little bit on the slower side, I think. For long periods of time, the Wicked One killer won't be on screen, and I would have to say, if you totted it up, I would argue that our kind of two acolyte brother and sister killers probably get more screen time, and we don't really see too much of the kind of the main killer, so to speak, until towards the end of the movie. So if you're kind of watching this expecting to have this kind of this guy front and centre, you'll be disappointed. And that also leads me to another issue I have with this film, is that it's the real lack of kind of stalking. Now, with the slasher genre is one of the most popular genres, and it was known once upon a time as stalk and slash, because we have these characters, these horror characters, slowly kind of stalking our victims, creating tension, creating fear for the kind of the characters, and then eventually striking. It's missing with this film, and it's not only this film. It's missing others. You don't get much of this kind of sense of someone's lurking outside, someone's following me, someone's kind of watching from the kind of the shadows and things like that. They're just there or they're not. So you don't really get that build up of kind of tension. I think the serial killer aesthetically looks cool, looks fine, but there's not any real sense of leading up to that kill, so to speak. It just happens, and that's it. And speaking of the kills, they're not particularly kind of extravagant. It's just kind of like a knife or something like that, or bludgeoned. It's relatively kind of simple in regards to the victims getting kind of killed in gruesome but not particularly spectacular kind of fashion. And there's not a particularly memorable kill or anything kind of like that. In actual fact, I would say the body count is a little low, if I'm completely honest. The other issue I have with the killers here is I don't really think the reasons why these kind of two groups of killers, this kind of lone Jason Voorhees kind of style guy, the Wicked One, and then this brother and sister, who are so different in terms of their characters. The brother and sister being so manic and kind of like, over the top and everything, whilst it's the silent, stoic slasher. I don't really understand why they were together, to be honest. They just seem to be together and that's it. They kind of run across each other's paths and then just kind of hang out. But I never really felt like there was a missed opportunity here to explore that kind of that dynamic. Now, if you think to a movie like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, where Henry was the kind of like the alpha killer, and he had, I think it was Otis, the other character's name, was like a kind of like almost like a fanboy wannabe kind of like rookie serial killer, so to speak, and he was kind of like just kind of fanboying, so to speak, over Henry. So that explored that kind of dynamic and had reasons why. But in this one, for example, it isn't. Now, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is treated much more of a serious kind of drama serial killer rather than a B-movie slasher. I understand that, but you understand my point here. I didn't really feel like there was any kind of real reason why these kind of these acolytes really would be hanging around this guy. They don't really seem to have much in the way of one-on-one interaction with him. They just are kind of there. And then I have some issues with the way they were depicted. I mean, for example, we have the sister sort of serial killer, and she's there with kind of perfect hair and makeup, things like this, and we're meant to believe that she's just escaped from you know, an asylum and things like that. She's still got the straitjacket on, but yet she's like perfectly kind of like made up and everything. It's like, you know, we just want to have a look in glamorous. It doesn't matter about anything else really. We just don't worry about that. And yeah, there are times here where I felt the movie will just dragged a little bit and its kind of pacing. Because we don't see the killers all that much, there's lots of kind of, again with the original movie, a little bit of kind of like more drama kind of sequences between the kind of family and stuff and the police, and they're alright, but there's sequences here that I felt could have been shortened to make this kind of a punchy film. I think this is maybe slightly better than the original Wicked one, but it still kind of feels like a kind of average, watchable but kind of unspectacular kind of slasher movie. Those of you who are really into slashers, I think, will probably enjoy this, but it's not going to be one that's going to be particularly kind of as a standout in any kind of meaningful way. So I'll give this one a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.